Hey, welcome back to ZK Master Tech. Today we got quite a doozy of a tractor here. Got a big 8420, but it's got a serious communication problem. So the symptoms were the customer was in the field side dressing corn and the engine would just die, or the transmission would default to neutral and the corner post would just read dashed lines. Patrick was previously diagnosed in this tractor. I went to give him a hand on it. We started doing a lot of diagnosing on this tractor. You can only communicate with, I think, the HCU, the SCO, the SCU on the corner post display. No other controllers show up. When you plug your laptop and service advisor up to this tractor, the only thing you can communicate with is the ECU and the ATC, which is the automatic temperature control. The ECU is the engine control unit, of course. So we got multiple controllers missing. The tractor would start and run and it would move. We started diagnosing it since you can't communicate with controllers, and it actually wasn't showing any codes. The only code it would show on the right hand display was a code for the steering control unit about, I think, wheel speed missing. So we started diving into CAN bus diagnostics on this thing. Long story short, I figured out that the CAN bus wires for the CCD bus are shorted together somewhere in the cab. It's in the cab side. So we ended up limping the tractor about 100 yards back to the customer shop. We got it in here now. I went ahead and ordered a cab harness, and we're going to just start ripping into this cab harness, and hopefully we can find out what's wrong with it and just fix it. If not, we've got an entire cab harness to replace. So let's get into it, and I'm going to show you guys just how daunting this cab harness is. Let's get into it. Look at this harness. This is like the most daunting cab harness of all time. So here's all your fuses. It's a lot. So the two wires that we're actually concerned with are these two, this green and yellow twisted pair. It's a 925 and 924 circuit. So I already did test these wires for continuity, and in the new harness it is OL. There is no continuity between those two wires whenever there's nothing plugged into the harness. So that's what we need to have happen in this tractor. So I got Joseph here with me today.
Howdy.
Don't worry about his eye. He got a little lippy. I had to smack him around. No, I'm just kidding. He's got like some infection going on with his eye, but he's going to help me tear out the cab. So I needed help getting the heavy seat out and everything like that, and working on the roof. So Joseph's going to tackle it with me, and we're going to get started. All right. So this cab, first things first is we got to get this seat out of here, because all that wiring is here and then goes up into the roof. So need to get this seat out of our way, and it also goes into the steering column too. So what I'm wanting to do is kind of get the seat out and kind of tear into this console and this back panel to try to see if we can figure out if there's a short in this harness right here to where we can repair it. If there is one, it's most likely probably in this area. So we're going to get to tearing the seat out. All right, so this is an active seat. So it's actually got a hydraulic cylinder and an airbag set up on the seat. So we've got the hydraulic lines disconnected and capped. Now we just got to disconnect the electrical for the air compressor and everything inside there. I'm going to take this armrest off. There's just 4 bolts inside of here that holds this onto the seat frame. Undo the harness underneath. It just kind of twists together. We'll get that armrest off, and then we'll start working on getting this seat unbolted off the box frame here. So we got the hydraulic lines disconnected, the electrical, got the armrest off the seat. I got the mount bolts off. Hopefully now the seat will come out, but it's extremely heavy. So I'm going to try to get on that side of the seat and you get on the front side of the seat, and hopefully we can bring it out of the cab together. I hope we just have enough room to squeak it through. Get those hydraulic lines out of it. Can you see the bottom? Yep. Are they out?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else holding us up? Doesn't look like it.
Everything's disconnected.
Wait.
Oh.
Wait. Pause. We got this air tank. Not sure how that pulls out of there. Be nice just to disconnect that. But it's not wanting to. It's been in there since Moby was a minnow. Well, okay. Well, I'm just going to have to try to hold that and this at the same time. Let's see here. Oh boy.
Yeah.
This is going to be a hoot. Tilt it. We need to go over the seat. Like, oh boy. Hold on. Yep. Hold on, you gotta get your end up more. You gotta go up, up, up. Hold on. Way up. Is it gonna fit?
Yeah.
Hold on, hold on. Alright, hold on. Hold on. Watch that door. Hold on. Hold on. That thing is heavy. Hold on, you're stuck on wires. Uppy, uppy. Up. There. Lord have mercy. Whew. I don't know what that seat weighs, but it's up there. And it just barely fits through that hole. So let's scoot this over here. There was 3 electrical connectors, and then there was 4 bolts holding it on. Now what we got? All right. Got a little bit more room for activities. There's the active seat controller right there. The ductwork for the HVAC. So, yeah. Now we can probably work on getting this. I don't know if I'll take this seat frame out or not. I have to get a game plan, but I know we need to get all these panels and stuff out of here. Okay, so the seat's out, and I started just going through the cab harness, following the 2 circuits that I was concerned with for the CCD bus, just looking at everything. Did not find anything visibly wrong with the wires. So I'm like, well, let's go ahead and probe into those 2 circuits and read what the resistance is. And it said OL. So I'm like, well, what the heck? Because before I had 2.9 thousand ohms, like I said. So I got to thinking, well, what all did we remove? The only thing that I had removed was the armrest. So, and I removed the SCV controller, the ICU, and the ATC. So I went ahead and plugged one in at a time, and the meter still read OL, which is good. Oh, we also had the rear cab wall connector off. because if we didn't have that off, then we would read the terminator resistance inside the CCU, which would be 120 ohms. So I had the cab wall main connector off, so we were only measuring the resistance of the two CCD bus wires inside of the cab. So we're reading OL, which is technically good because that's what our new harness reads with nothing hooked up. So I'm like, well, where did the 2.9 thousand ohms come from? Because initially I looked at the CCD bus schematic, and using the schematic, I went to every point, every controller that those wires went to, and I made sure that they were unplugged when I did my resistance check. Well, the only thing I noticed that was gone out of the cab that we didn't touch was the old brown box GPS display right here. Well, this tractor is old enough where this did not come from the factory with integrated auto track. It was added after the fact. So they had to add, there's a valve down here, some hoses and everything, steering valve, and a steering controller on the back. And then you've got these wires coming to your display. It did not show these wires on the schematic. So I didn't have that plugged in. Well, no, this was plugged in, and that's where I was reading 2.9. So I found the monitor and I plugged it in, and it went from OL to 2.9. So that's the resistance I was actually seeing, was just the internal resistance of that display, which is normal. When you're doing a resistance check on a CAN bus, you want to make sure that there's nothing plugged into that, so you're not reading an internal resistance from a controller. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm glad I didn't just go ahead and start yanking this harness out. I'm kind of approaching it cautiously and trying to figure out if we could fix this harness. But now I don't think there's anything wrong with the cab harness. So the only thing that was messing with me was the CAN bus. The CAN was not moving. The voltages were staying about 2.4 and 2.5 on each wire, but the voltage was not moving. So that told me that it wasn't communicating. On the CCD bus, it measured 2.4 and 2.5, but the voltages were changing a little bit, so I knew that it was actually communicating on the CCD bus. So originally, before I started suspecting a cab short, I suspected the vehicle controller on the back. Right? Point at it, Joseph. That one right there. So that is your CCU/PCU. So that's your chassis control unit, and it has your transmission controller in it as well. It is also the gateway controller for the CCD and CAN network. So both networks go to that controller on the back, and then it broadcasts its messages out. So originally I thought there might have been an issue with that controller, so I went ahead and ordered that controller before I even ordered the harness. So I brought the controller with me here today, and we plugged everything back in. We put that controller on, which it's kind of you don't have to download software to it. You just plug and play, but then you have to go in and configure a bunch of addresses and everything to let it know, what kind of tractor setup we got here for an 8420. So now I've got the fuse in the diagnostic mode. So when you want to go to diagnostic mode on an older tractor, like a 20 series, you go move the fuse from this little spare slot, and you move it into this slot that says diag. And then when you turn the key on, it'll read diag on this corner post display. So we turn the key on, and now we don't have dashed lines anymore. It says diag. And now my coolant temp is reading normal. Before it would read max. It is blinking electrical and read manual, but I haven't done any of the configurations on the controller yet. But look here. Use the turn signal to scroll through this menu. That goes to all. Like if I want to view all the codes, But look, CCU shows up. That wasn't showing up before. HCU, ECU, so that's our engine control unit. HCU was the hitch control unit. PCU, that's our transmission controller. ICU, that's this display right here. ACU, that's our armrest control unit. LHP, I don't remember what that one is. SCU, SCO, that's all has to do with our SCVs and our hydraulics. SUP, SSU is our steering controller, our active seat unit. So now we are reading all of the controllers, which we weren't before. So that's kind of interesting. So swapping out that chassis control unit changed a lot of things, and now everything's communicating again. So now the controller actually came with some instructions to configure all the addresses. So I'm going to go through each one of those addresses, try to get it configured correctly, because right now it's showing 0 engine hours. So I don't know exactly what it was before. So it would read 0 before. So I don't really know what the last hour reading was. I'm just going to have to look at the work order, see what the last recording reading was, talk with the customer, try to get an accurate engine hour meter in there, the reading in there. So I'm going to go through the configurations. Okay, so I had to use the controller came with this little installation instructions. So I had to go through every single CCU address here and put in the correct information for an 8420. I put question marks near the ones that I wasn't sure about, and I looked those up, and I think we got the correct configuration there. I had to put the engine hours in. I had 4567.5. The customer just happened to take a picture of the engine hours before this thing failed. So, because before it would just say 0 even after we replaced the controller, it was always reading 0. So I wasn't sure what the hours were. So 4567.5, we got that programmed. That's a one-time deal. So once you put this in, it's burned in there forever. Yeah, so all the CCU addresses, all the ECU addresses, all the PCU addresses, and now we have to do a transmission calibration. We'll do that after we get the cab all back together. Okay, so now that all the addresses are configured correctly, the only code that is showing on the display is that the seat switch is not hooked up. So that's obviously because we don't have a seat in the tractor. So this whole experience, we're just going to chalk up for a learning experience. You know, sometimes you just got to pay your dues and learn the hard way. This is one of those times. So now I know the next time we run into this issue with an 8420, I'm going to have a lot better knowledge on how the CCD bus and the CAN bus works on this machine and how it's wired. And I'm also going to know that brown box GPS display is on the CCD bus as well. So just got to chalk that up for experience. At least we didn't rip the entire cab harness out of this tractor yet. All we did was take some interior panels and the seat out. So we still saved a whole bunch of time and money. That cab harness is $8,000. And I'm assuming it would take us at least a couple days probably to put it in. So we saved a bunch of money there. I think the controller was around $2,000, I think, something like that. Still a pricey controller, but it's better than $10,000. So now I'm going to go ahead and use my Milwaukee M18 vacuum. I'm going to vacuum out the cab a little bit before I put all the panels and stuff back in, and then we'll put the seat in, all the console displays and the armrest and the floorboards and all that happy stuff. And then once we get the cab back together, then we can take this tractor outside and perform a transmission calibration. All right, Joseph, let's get this heavy seat back in the cab. Oh my goodness. That's intense.
Oh, let's
Just set it down. This seat is a man killer. Hold on, it's on my boot. Now I can't move. Ow. Okay. All right, can you get up a step? Oopsie daisy. Oh. Lift your end down. Set it down. Holy moly. That seat is a man killer. We got the seat bolted in and the electrical hooked up. That's a good time. Now we just got to get the hydraulics hooked up to this cylinder. So on an active seat, that hydraulic cylinder basically helps control keeping the operator in position and not going up and down. Kind of acts as a controlled shock absorber on that seat. So we got 2 hydraulic lines hook up that little cylinder, and then we can put the skirt back on and then put the floor in. Tractor is alive. It starts and moves, that's a plus. So now I'm gonna hook up this jumper hose into the SCVs, and I'm gonna heat the hydraulic oil because I gotta get it to 140 degrees before we can calibrate this transmission. Okay, so we got a jumper hose in 1, set the flow to 8. No jumper hose in 2 because we want to deadhead that circuit so the pump will go to maximum pressure. So we're heating up the oil there. It's flashing trans in this light here because the transmission has not been calibrated yet. So once we calibrate the transmission, those lights will quit blinking. Right now we're looking at the hydraulic oil temp. So to get there, you push PTO speed and service hours together, and that shows in Celsius. We're at 50 Celsius. In order to do the trans calibration, we need to be 60, 62 degrees Celsius. So right now we're gonna drive the tractor around and shift through all the gears we can to try to heat up all the elements inside the transmission. Okay, so we got the oil heated up and I drove the tractor through all the gears. So now we got the transmission in 4th gear. I'm gonna idle down, turn off the SCVs. I'm gonna put the fuse into the diagnostic position. Now it should start running through all the gears doing an auto purge. There it goes. It's going to shift all the way to 13, then it's going to go 12, 11, neutral, and you're supposed to shift to park just before the tractor comes to a stop. 11, 13, running out of real estate. Neutral. Right before the tractor stops, bam. Just so it just slightly jerks. Now, I'm just going to cycle the key real quick. Get it back into diag mode. ECU, flash to pass, go to address 22. So 000 means that we have the summer grade oil, the J20C, which is correct. Go through all that. Just flash past. I'm going to cycle the hazard switch. Save that. So I made sure the oil was hot enough again. It got a little too warm. We got to wait till that gets back down to 62. See, right now it says oil, so that means our oil temp's too high. It'll cool down here in a sec. And then when it does, then I'm going to move the shift lever into forward. See how it says forward now? So we're just going to move the shift lever into the forward position. And it's going to start calibrating all the forward valves. And you want to make sure that you have the air conditioning off and the SCVs off. You don't want any additional engine load or it'll throw the calibration off. So right now it says AB, so that is the clutch element that it is going to calibrate. So it's calibrating the fill and hold times of each clutch element. So it knows how long to open that valve, how many milliseconds it takes to fill the clutch, and then we're going to calculate how much oil pressure it takes to hold the clutch. So we're calibrating the fill and the hold times on every single clutch in the transmission. So what's good about doing that every so now and then, because you'll have, you know, wear in your clutch elements. So the friction material will wear off the clutch discs, so your thickness of your clutch pack over time will decrease. So when you recalibrate, you actually get a new fill and hold time value, so that'll actually improve your shifting characteristics with the transmission. So it'll shift smoother after a calibration, because we're compensating for the wear in the clutch packs. But we're calibrating the transmission because we put a brand new controller on it and it doesn't have any calibration data in it for each clutch pack. So it's just using a pre-programmed default value for each one. So when we were driving around, it was actually shifting pretty harsh. So now that we're going through and calibrating the transmission, it should shift like a dream when we're done. All right. So also I wanted to talk about the calibration error messages that you could possibly have. So while you're calibrating the transmission, you might get an error message, either L, H, F, or S. L is element engaged with minimal PCU duty cycle commander pressure. H is element did not engage with maximum PCU duty cycle commander pressure. F is element engaged with minimal fill time. See that quite a bit if you have the bevel springs inside of the clutch pack, that the springs actually return the piston when the hydraulic pressure is removed. If your springs break, that clutch pack will fill super fast. So you'll get that message if you have springs broken in your clutch pack. Or S, element did not engage in maximum fill time. You could have a clutch pack that's seized up, can't move, or maybe you have a problem with the shift valve not allowing oil to get to the clutch element. So hopefully this thing won't have any error messages when we calibrate the transmission. You never know. This is a good thing to do if you're actually diagnosing a transmission that's either missing a gear or the transmission doesn't move. You have some sort of problem with the transmission. You can do this calibration to try to figure out which element is giving you an error message during a calibration. So you calibrate the forward valves until it says neutral on the display, and then when you put it into neutral, it'll say reverse. So now we're going to put it in reverse to calibrate all the reverse elements. There we go. Let it do its thing. So once the reverse element is calibrated and should be displayed, and that is the end of the calibration, I'm going to put it in park. And we're just going to shut the tractor off. I'm going to gonna put the fuse back in. And now we're gonna test drive the tractor and see how she performs. So I cleared all the codes and I had one come back, PCU 7, which is the no load calibration has not been done. So we're gonna go to address 23 of the PCU. So what's it say to do, Joseph?
Pump it up.
Set engine speed at 2200. Now what's it say? Hold flash to pass until the left digit starts to flash. Then what? Then cycle the hazard switch to on and off. And then that's our new no load torque.
Yep. As long as it's below 370 newton meters.
As long as we're below 370, so it's at 127. Okay. So I guess we're good. Alright, let's see what happens now. So I'm going to clear that code out. So I got the fuse back in. If I go to all, and then I'm going to flash to pass, and then it's going to read all the codes. So then you cycle the hazard switch right after the beep, and that'll clear it. There's our 7 code. This is the old school way of clearing codes. Let's see what we got now. PTO. I think we got to do a PTO calibration now. So many calibrations. Let's see what that is. That's probably what that CCU code was. CCU 76. Look that up, Joseph. So yeah, that was the rear PTO calibration fault, so we haven't done that yet. So we're still in diagnostic mode. We're going to access PTU address 24. Oh, PCU address 24. Okay. It says oil. Does that mean our oil's not up to temp? It's at 53.
Yep.
What's it need to be? Just go ahead and heat it up. Oh, now it says PTO. So now what? You engage the PTO?
Yep. Switch it on.
Alright. On. Says off. Switched it off. Says end. So we got?
Yep.
Okay. Now, let's clear the codes out again. Now, please, behave. Oh my goodness. No more codes. Finally. Let's give this thing a test drive. We're just going through the gears on this thing. Man, it shifts pretty good. 12th, 13th. I mean, it's way better than it was before we calibrated the transmission. 5 to 4 was especially rough. Here's 5, 4. It's a big range shift right there. Real smooth. First gear. Second. Third. Fourth. 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10, 11, 12, 13. I'm gonna run out of real estate. It's got 16 gears, but giddy up. All right. That's a bit aggressive in the driveway, wasn't it? All right, reverse gears. Start with 1 reverse, 2, 3, 4. Perfect. All right. I think we're good to go, Joseph. All right, I'm back at the shop. I'm going to pick up some more parts for the next job, but I figured you guys would want to see some X9 cartage. Check this out. There it is. So I had to go full nuclear on this chopper gear case on this X9 1100 because the bearings had come loose and it basically filled the gear case with metal. Had a bunch of metal on the magnetic drain plug on this thing, and the oil was black. So I determined the gear case is just too far gone. We're going to replace the gear case anyway, so I just needed to get it off the shaft. Well, you're just supposed to, the gear case just slips on, and then there's a nut and washer that goes on the end of this, and you're supposed to just slide it off. Well, I took the nut off. The nut had gotten so hot that all the nylon had melted out of the nut. And I pulled the nut off. That gear case would not budge. Tried everything. Tried indexing bars, 2 of them behind it, smacking the shaft with a 10-pound sledge. Would not budge. Put a T-bar puller on it. Heated up the bearing with a torch. Still would not budge. So I ended up having to cut through there so I could cut the bearing and get the bearing off. And then I had to take the bolts out of the backside of the gear case and basically force it apart and break it all apart. All the gears and everything fell on the floor. And then I just had this spacer was the problem why it was stuck on that shaft. And I heated this thing up glowing orange with a bearing splitter, a 10-ton bearing splitter behind it, and had it stalled out, and it still would not come off the shaft.
I'm giving her all she's got, Captain. If I push it any harder, the whole thing will blow.
So I had to cut it and split it, and then I was eventually able to get an air hammer and get it turned, and finally got the stupid thing on the shaft. And then I could get the rest of the gears off, and then I could pry that thing off the shaft. But man, did that thing fight me. So, little X9 carnage for you guys. I got this X9 in the shop, did an inspection on it, and we're going to be doing some repairs to this thing, some more content to come on that. But right now, I'm going to the country to work on a 8R that is experiencing some cab power issues that I've been working on. All right, I made it back to the shop. Let me show you what this chopper gear case on this X9 is supposed to look like. Here it is. X9 chopper gear case, 2-speed. So there's that little spacer I was talking about that was stuck on the shaft. And there's that bearing right there. So you just take this, slide it onto the shaft, and put a nut on there and torque it to spec. Spin this a few more times, keep torquing. There's like 4 different torque specs, but you have to rotate this so many times. But yeah, that's all it is. It weighs like 56 pounds, and this thing is $8,400. Giddy up. So all right, that's going to do it for this video. I appreciate you guys watching. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you're not already, comment below, let me know how I'm doing, and until next time, keep that green iron moving.